We're live.
Okay, guys, welcome to our Thursday trade alert. I'll summarize the trade alert and then go into the conspiracy theory, which is all we could put it at so far. Today, I want to protect our TLT position, which has gone up about 11% in 2020. And so my expectation in the short term is that the U.S. is going to try to protect its stock market in the next week or two with everything it's got. So it's pretty amazing sell-off. We're protected through Monday on the SPY with our put. And so we have nothing to worry about that position. At this point in time, I want to protect that TLT position. And so we are buying an in-the-money put option that expires March 13th with a 153 strike. That's one option contract per 100 shares of the TLT. We're probably one of the few investors in the world who are up in 2020. Nobody saw this coming. I was early to try to short the stock market, then didn't have the guts to do it as market kept rallying extremely aggressively high. At the same time, we've had a lot of misreporting from our governments and health officials. So it's made it hard to really read between the lines. In a minute, I'll just summarize what doesn't add up and why I was so precautious and what could be the next risk that people don't see coming. Okay, so we're up approximately 0.9% in February, and that was this morning. I do have to update the value of the put. And again, we are protected on the SPY with that in-the-money put through Monday. So in the short term, I'm still expecting the stock market to have a strong bounce to the upside, which could apply some pressure on the bond market. So we're trying to lock in that profit in case there is some sort of recovery in the stock market that puts some pressure on yields going into next week. So the expiration we've chosen is March 13th, which gives us 15 days. And again, I will likely sell this put next Thursday and reevaluate the situation. That's if the TLT has gone down. Now, if market's going down aggressively next week, which certainly possible, the VIX is at a level that will cause lots and lots of selling. So it's going to take some pretty hardcore intervention by the U.S. banking system to try to slow down the stock market crash, which I think they will try to do with everything they can in the coming weeks. Let's say they can't or they don't for whatever reason. Then I do believe the TLT in the next 2 weeks can appreciate at a faster rate than we will lose on our put. So that's really the gamble here, is that if they do try to recover the stock market, then we've essentially locked in our profit on the TLT, and that put option will protect the value of it to a good degree. It's not going to 100% protect it, but it will dramatically protect the profits we've accumulated on the TLT, and we're wide open on the SPY. So I quite likely will, unless it's an extremely expensive put, try to do a very similar play that we did today on the SPY. So we'll have to evaluate that on Monday. I don't expect any changes between now and Monday on our SPY position. And so that's exactly why we bought the in-the-money put, was in case they couldn't keep control over the stock market and expecting even more bad news to start coming out of Korea, Italy. It's really spreading everywhere now. If this all comes out over the weekend, I think there could be substantially more downside on the SPY. So if the SPY keeps selling off, we're going to have to work off this put option we've invested in. But I think that can be easily accomplished. Again, I do suspect the government and the banking system will try to provide some life support to the SPY next week. So that's sort of the mentality on this. There's no changes to our put options on emerging markets, and there's no change on GDX. So spot gold is rocketing higher. That's exactly what we want to see to be patient and let those gold miners start to make some profits. While gold potentially could double in a year if it was absolutely outrageous, this position could more than triple just from gold staying at the current prices it's at. So that's why I do still prefer GDX over GLD, even though GLD has had the first run. So what do I think is happening? Where's the bad information coming out of the government? Here's just the simple math that anyone can do in their head. If we had 7,000 flu deaths in America, and you assume that there's a similar infection rate in China, that would put them at 30,000 flu deaths in January in 2020. Now, they didn't shut down, and they've never shut down China from 20,000 flu deaths ever. So this is a historic move they've made to shut down a $1 trillion per month economy. So the numbers they're reporting, which is, let's just round up to 3,000 deaths, make absolutely 0 sense. So I, in my head, have simply multiplied what I expect was their flu death rate in January by a factor of 5. I've lowered the known mortality rate from 3% to 1, and it puts you up at 150,000 deaths in January, with 150 million Chinese, or 1 out of 100 infected. That's the kind of problem that I think would actually cause China to shut down and take the actions they've had. So the next question is, if that assumption is correct, how did it happen? Was it an accident, or was it on purpose? If it's an accident, and we're really getting along with China, as Trump says, in his press briefing yesterday, China's great. We're great buddies with China. She is working so hard to solve this. They totally glossed over this. There was no factual data. They're not testing people in America on purpose. So if this is an attack by China, my next fear is that they will go after our bond market. So besides expecting a rally in stocks designed by the US government and banking system next week, which could put some pressure on TLT, my next concern is, what if this is an attack and they start to go after the US bond market? So that's just the bottom line of my concern, why I'm adding a put option below the TLT. And again, if we're incorrect and the stocks do continue to crash next week, I think it'll get more vicious than we've seen this week, and the TLT will easily pay off the put option we're investing in today, which is a cost of $2.85 per option contract, and it is in the money by a full dollar. So this will really help us protect the profits on the TLT, and lets us sleep safe on our 2 largest positions through the weekend. Okay, so that's really the long and skinny of it. Let's go ahead and open up for Q&A now. Also, there's a fellow, the first case I found in Albuquerque, the fellow went to China, came here, had flu-like symptoms, went to the ER, tested negative for A and B flu. Who can guess the result he got for the coronavirus? Now remember, this guy went to China, came here with flu-like symptoms, tested negative for A and B flu. Who can guess the result the hospital gave him for the coronavirus?
Negative, because they probably had to send it to the CDC because they don't have the test kits.
You're close, but that's wrong.
Okay. I haven't had a chance to pay attention to too much. So
it's a trick question. Let's see if Oscar can get it. Oscar, what do you think the test results for the coronavirus were for the guy who flew to China, came back here with flu-like symptoms and tested negative for flu?
Negative.
No,
Oh, he's not qualifying anything.
it's
Come on.
it's a trick question. They didn't test him. They sent him home.
Well, that's what I said. Well, okay, fine. So I was half right. They didn't have the test kit. All
You
right.
can't have an epidemic if you don't test anybody for the coronavirus. They're not testing anyone. So it's outrageous. I think they're trying to prevent a panic. And so yeah, it was no results because they didn't test him. They sent the guy home. So for my just general measurement, there were tens of millions of people who flew through China during the period of this outbreak, and the virus is well spread through the entire world. We're now seeing it pop up in Brazil. So that's really the long and skinny of how I'm going to play the markets. Put options will be our best friend, and a little bit of humility with trying to expect what's coming next at us. So yeah, we could have had a bigger profit in February if I had stuck to my instincts and been shorting the SPY. But we still made a profit. So I think we're doing pretty well so far for 2020. Let's see. I see a bunch of questions popping up in the chat box. Let me pull that up. Yeah, this is not anything like SARS. So Dean thinks this is all going to wash away in a month.
Nope.
I do not. I think this is going to get far worse.
I don't either. And I'll tell you why. Because, I mean, they already had that first flight attendant from Korean Airlines who, tested positive. I'm just, this is just the way it goes. I mean, if this thing has been out as long as I think it has, I agree with you. It's all over the place. What do they say? It's in 40 some odd countries now. I mean, obviously some people are going to have a little bit better health to be able to have better immunity, even though we don't have built-in immunity. We're just, some people just have a stronger constitution than others and may be able to ward it off. But until they come up with something, and yes, they're pushing it, and yes, that's all you can hear out there is Gilead and Moderna, blah, 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 blah. And I'm sitting here thinking, I was so busy earlier this week with my mother. I mean, I chimed in once yesterday, and I'm in the car doing what I got to do. I really, really wanted to buy some straight calls on this stuff. Shoulda, coulda, woulda, because everybody else I know has made a fortune doing that. But oh well, opportunity may have been gone and maybe not. But yeah, it's going. And you're right. We don't know what we don't know. This is ridiculous. And eventually we'll be all right. But I mean, just like anything else, we'll build immunities. We'll have medicines to be able to handle this. But right now.
Yeah. So they never cured SARS, first of all. Okay, I got some questions. Dee says, do you mind repeating your opening remarks? Yeah. So Dee, we have a put that was in the money from yesterday, which will cover us through Monday. So we can't lose a penny more than we paid for our put option between now and Monday on the SPY. My short-term belief is that we do see a pop in the SPY next week and a pullback in the TLT, just with how I think money may be flowing back and forth. Okay, so that's just from a very high level, just without any sort of conspiracy. Now, I know Dee likes her conspiracy. My darkest conspiracy theory is that China knew that 80% of our medical supplies and medicines are monopolized in China, and that they could better deal with something of this nature than anyone else in the world because of their dictatorship government model. So my darkest fear is that they unleash this on themselves. How would you blame them if it originated in China? Okay, they kept it quiet. They knew about this in November. They knew about this in December as they signed the trade deal, which perhaps they didn't want to sign. Okay, now, if this is correct,
thank you.
If this is correct, and the virus is already rapidly spreading in the United States, which I without question believe it is. In the next several weeks, we're going to have overrun hospitals. We're going to be running out of supplies, and the entire supply chain to deal with this is going to be cut off by China. It's already being cut off because they're saying they need it for themselves. Okay, so that's my
How
darkest.
arrogant will the U.S. appear if that all comes to fruition? Very.
Yeah. So go get 4 weeks of supplies. If you have any medicines you need, load up on it and be on high alert. So yeah, I mean, how do you beat this? Just from a survival standpoint? Well, it's likely going to touch base on everybody in the next 90 days. So you're either going to have the immune system that can fight it, or you're not. The vaccine at the earliest is ready in 14 months, and that's a long shot. So no vaccine to save us this year. If we look at the Spanish flu, that was in 1918. I need to go back and research that again. I believe it was killing people for the better part of a decade. There was a first wave that had mild problems for humans. Everybody thought they had created the antibodies and cured it. And then the second wave came. And that's where they now estimate 50 million people died and a third of the population was infected. 1.7 billion humans in 1918. Now we have 7 billion people. Furthermore, the amount of pollution and population density is far greater today than it was obviously 100 years ago. So to think, where have we actually gotten in terms of technology advancements to fight viruses? Fucking nowhere. We're in the dark ages. They're treating this with ventilators. So it's a scary time for sure. I hope I'm wrong. Certainly hope I'm wrong. We're still remaining long stocks and bonds with put options, and we're leveraging the risk through the put option market. But my best guess is look at what China had to do to fight this virus and expect similar measures to be required to survive it here in the United States. That's my concern at this point.
So Jason, why do you think gold is down, or the GDX?
I wouldn't worry about your GDX. The money's flowing to spot gold right now. Okay, so that's where the money's flowing right now. So spot gold's going up, and you're in the business of mining and selling gold. You're in a good position. So yeah, I think the money's we live in a world where money is trying to chase the momentum with computers. So they know the knee-jerk reaction is the bond market and maybe spot gold. So once they think that's been bid up as high as it possibly can go, where would the money go next? So as far as looking at how the dominoes fall, gold may be lucky if you double it. If this gets absolutely insane in the next 2 years, GDX could triple, quadruple. Now I'm playing the spot price having a big jump in our boot camp in the silver market with spot silver, which also happens to be one of the few ingredients that disinfects and kills viruses. So beyond being a play with gold, that's actually what they're spraying. One of the ingredients they're spraying all over China right now. So I do like that little option play we have there. But yeah, CDC is not testing people. They're not going to test people because they know if this got let loose, everybody with a sniffle is going to rush to the hospital system. Then you're going to increase the rate of spreading the virus. You're going to overwhelm your hospital system, and you're going to have a complete meltdown. So I get it. I get why they'll go up on TV, tell you it's all good and dandy. 15 cases, my ass.
Jason, I'm not going to go against your opinion, but I'm not seeing any of that. we're not seeing any of that. I mean, we're seeing some of the normal respiratory issues, but nothing to lead us to believe that there's any kind of serious issue.
Well, I hope you're right, Oscar, because if you're correct, then SPY's going to skyrocket up, TLT is going to crash, and we're set up perfectly for it, at least in the short term. But how do you tell me that someone goes to China, comes back to Albuquerque with flu-like symptoms, tests negative for the flu, and they send his ass home?
I mean, did he ultimately get confirmed with the corona?
No, they won't test him. That's the whole problem. US is not testing anybody for coronavirus. So if US was testing 1,000, 10,000 people a day, like South Korea is, I would go along with, we don't have a problem here. But let's pull it up. They have a whole section here so we can
Well,
see.
weren't those first test kits flawed? And that's why they pulled them, and they haven't even issued new ones yet because they're not accurate yet.
They don't want to cause a rush. Imagine if they told the world, America, that the virus is, look at this, guys. We have 363,000 Chinese international college students alone, most of which flew home during this period to go celebrate their new year, and they came right back.
Hey,
Okay.
Jason, William McNeely's had a question for quite a while in the chat box.
Yeah, let me pull that up. Okay. Okay, Ernest says he has a hard time believing all this. Sure, Ernest, that's fine, but we're delivering profits. We're predicting the market accurately. So even if half of what I'm saying is true, we're still making the right moves in our portfolio, and everyone else is getting destroyed. So I've put about 500 hours into researching this. I think most people have put less than 2 or 3. So without spending 10, 20 hours going through all the data, it would be hard for me to convince you. That's why I've summarized this really simple for everyone and made it very easy to follow. Okay, let's see. William says,
Hey, Jason, along the lines of that last question, I like how you occasionally throw in and be humble, meaning you know that while you strongly believe in this, you also know that you could be flat out 100% wrong, and you have puts, and you're taking measures just in case you're 100% wrong, in which case you'd have to be humble, right? You would be humbled because you were completely wrong, but your positions are still advantageous, even if you are 100% wrong.
Yeah. I'd be curious how many brokerage accounts are up in 2020? Like what percentage? Not many. Let me go through some more of these questions. Okay, so William's wondering, should I follow the trade? Yes, always follow the trades. So should I purchase 200 shares of TLT and the put? Yes, sir. Should I purchase 200 shares of GDX? Yes, sir. Should I purchase 200 shares of EEM? No. We have the put options on EEM. So let me pull up that trade. So yeah, guys, I would love to be completely wrong on this. But so far I'm not. Okay, let me pull up the last trade so you can see and this one's still good. It's up. What's our put up? I wanted to add, emerging markets isn't having the dramatic sell off the SPY is, which you could say, okay, well, it's just because they were already relatively sold off with lower PEs and all that jazz. But their economy is going to be hit first before America's. So that I just didn't have enough time to really think it through. So that's why I didn't add to that position, but I still think it's a good trade, and it's only gone up. Last I checked, as like 150% or something. But yeah, if I'm correct, stocks have far further to fall. Okay, so here was our trade alert. So we're not long EEM right now. We only have this put option right here. Let me find it. There it is. The May 15 42 put. So if you had 200 shares of emerging markets, our trade alert was to sell those last Thursday and to simply replace it with 2 long put options. So I'm trying to think of worst case scenarios, guys. If we're under attack by China, okay, they get our health system overran. They crash our stock market. Okay, it looks like both of those are achieved. What's the last thing to take out? Your bond market. So that's, besides hoping the SPY bounces next week and pulls back TLT just with natural money flows, you know, what could China do? They could go unload the $1 trillion of treasuries in one huge move. I don't think they're going to do that necessarily, but if they did, that would be devastating to the TLT in a short order. Because right now, that TLT only can get away with selling about, what is it, like 30, about 20 to 30 billion is added to that supply per month. If they were to suddenly go drop all their long duration debt at one moment, well, every single money manager who relies on this stock bond relationship would be totally screwed. So if China didn't do this on purpose and they have no intentions to go sell their treasuries, which would be a pretty crazy move, it would be an act of war without doubt. Then TLT should continue to rise as long as stocks go down, and it makes our strategy really easy. The worst case scenario for America at this point is if our bond market were to crash at the same time as the stock market. The financial system could not handle that. Now we're tiny money. We can go buy puts. You know, we're like little tiny little minnows floating out there. So we can be a lot safer than, you know, your $100 billion funds. Let's see what other questions we got. So yeah, we're really set for, it's going to be hard for us to lose. Okay, Kathy C, you have a question? So yeah, guys, the trades are always good to follow. I designed this so that you can jump in at any time as long as it's the day of the trade and you're building the full portfolio. People get hurt when they try to guess which trade alert's going to work and which one's not. The strategy is designed to work together, and that's why we've done well in February, despite not predicting. You know, I was cautious about the SPY, obviously, with all the puts, but was incorrect, and we still made a nice profit so far, and month's not over yet. So we still, let's see, we'll be closing the books out on this tomorrow. So I'll close the balance on the February return at the close of Friday, and we'll open a new set of books on Monday. Let me pull up the CDC. So if the CDC was testing at least 1,000 people a day and the results were coming back negative, that would be one thing. Let me pull up this. I have it saved in my other chat box. Let me find it. But they're testing nobody. And so that's a giveaway. Also, Ernest, there's nobody I've come across that has the same theory I have, even close. Except for Karen. Karen, I think, was alluding to something like this way back a month ago.
Yep.
So I hope I'm wrong. And if I am wrong, our current setup will make a lot of money in the next week. If I'm correct, we're just not going to lose. Okay.
That's a very comfortable place to be. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, considering, because yeah, it's hard to think.
Nobody would see a bond crash coming right now. Nobody. Okay, so 445 tests. That's the problem here. They're not testing anybody. You can't have a pandemic if you don't test. Brilliant. But it makes sense. They don't want to cause everybody with a sniffle to flee to the hospital, which would overrun the hospitals. If there is a virus spreading, like I think there is, that would make it happen much faster. All of a sudden, people don't want to go to work. Your whole economy shuts down. So you got bigger problems. So I get it. Next, the big question is this being done on purpose, or is it just a complete accident? If it's a complete accident, bond market's going to fly high, really easy trading for us. Really just dead easy. Okay, because you're going to shut down all these economies. GDP is going to crash. All the central banks lower rates. Okay, we know the playbook. So if that's the case, just sit on your TLT and protect your SPY with a put, and you have nothing to worry about. If this is a real attack and they go after our bond market while the stocks are crashing at the same time, you get a financial meltdown. And I'm not the first person to talk about this. Ray Dalio has been talking about this potential event ruining the financial system for the better part of 2 years. So go dig up some Ray Dalio interviews, and he'll tell you the biggest threat to America is if the bond market and stock market were to fall at the same time, because no one can handle that. Every single large money manager relies on that relationship protecting one another. So, if you had a $50 billion bond portfolio spread out over every different treasury duration, and you're also playing many different countries, well, this becomes a lot harder to protect that position. For us, we're tiny little fish. We can buy a little put and sleep like a baby. So if you have an outlook like Dean, you think this is all bullshit, it's going to fly over, we're going to do great. We're going to do great. If I'm correct, we're not going to lose. Let's see what other questions we got out there. Okay, Kathy says conspiracy regarding the World Bank. Yeah, okay, I'll check it out, Kathy. She says, I'm going to send you an email with the conspiracy regarding World Bank investors are set to cash in on hundreds of millions of dollars in massive payouts from the World Bank if there's no global pandemic declared before July. Yeah, there's some sort of pandemic bond. I got to do a little more research on that one. I've heard some stuff about that. Some people, think the US is trying to make an attack on China. That's some of the conspiracies I've seen. I don't think that's the case, but some people think it was an accident. I have never heard anyone, except for Karen, say something similar to what my job is to think of the worst outcome and risks to your money. Okay, the worst risk that could possibly happen now is for the bond market to crash at the same time as the stock market. So who cares why? That's the big risk that could melt down the entire financial system right now. So that's why we're buying a put on the TLT, and we can all sleep like a baby here.
Hey, Jason, chalk this one up to rumor mongering and take it with a grain of salt. But I heard a rumor that some of the CDC personnel were interviewing the people at the Wuhan lab, and that 2 people at the lab had admitted to selling lab animals to the market when they were done with them for some extra bucks because they were so underpaid.
Exactly. I heard the same thing.
And if that was the case, then you would think that an out of season bat would garner a little bit higher price than, when bats are rare because they're all hibernating. If you have a bat, that is probably going to get a little more than the average lab rat or lab animal. And so, maybe there was not an intermediary and it came directly from there. And so anyway, that's what I heard. Don't know if it's been, verified.
Yeah, I read that story as well. Yeah, who knows? So
I heard it on
accident
the
or
news this morning.
yeah, accident or not. Yeah, it just the numbers don't add up. They're not testing anybody. You don't shut down China for 2,500 deaths, and it's growing prolifically in other places now. It's even hit Brazil from a little soccer team that flew through LA. So
Exactly.
certainly time to have a little paranoia and buy some puts, just to be a real simple put here. No pun intended. So yeah, I if I'm wrong, then TLT, if I'm half right, let's just say I'm half right, the virus is going to spread in the United States within a few weeks. They can't just keep not testing people. What's going to happen to the guy in Albuquerque? Let's say he does have the coronavirus. Well, they're probably thinking, well, if he does have a coronavirus, he'll be back, right? So all these people they're sending home not testing, they'll be back. And then they'll do the test when they're having respiratory failure. So if I'm completely wrong, SPY ETF is going to take off like a rocket ship, and we have no call option blocking our profits. So yeah, I really like the way we're playing this. Didn't have time to really dig into why the hell emerging markets isn't selling off very much right now. That's kind of surprising to me. We're up decently on that. We got a lot of time on our side. And yeah, who would have seen this coming, huh? I didn't see it coming. Our heads up was early in January when the EEM ETF, remember our whole thing was EEM has to go up with the SPY, otherwise something's wrong. And that relationship broke down in early January. And so we're all scratching our heads trying to figure out what on earth is going wrong here.
But like you say, Jason, the EEM is not coming down to the same degree that the SPY is. And you would think it'd be more.
Yeah, because they're taking the big hit first. So the only argument I haven't done a lot of research on this yet. We're up. I think it's going to get a far larger return. But so emerging markets started off at a discount. There was at like 15 PE multiples. Yeah, while the SPY was at 18.6. So, and guys, so many people are fooled. I'm reading Yardini research, who I highly respect. This guy hasn't a clue what's going on with this. Most people have no clue. They don't want to believe it. They, if you read Plato's book, you're sitting there watching the shadows, but you got to turn around to see where the sunlight's coming in from through the tunnel. So I think people are going to slowly wake up here.
Well, let's look at the EEM for a minute. I'm just pulling that up and looking at the holdings, right? You've got Alibaba, Chinese. You got Tencent, Hong Kong. Well, that's what's listed. You got Taiwan Semiconductor.
Yeah, it's basically just the top companies in Asia, excluding Japan.
Right.
So absolutely, those guys will be punished first because they're the ones going into lockdowns for who
right,
knows. But
at the moment, we've got the PBOC, and that's the other reason why, like the FXI as well, is not moving because it's being supported.
You seem to cut out every once in a while. Maybe it's me.
Well, the yang is down.
Yeah, give it some time. You can't shut down business for months and have a bullish stock move for long. So it's just
no, exactly. It's going to happen. It's just not yet because they're still whatever they're doing all their emergency, whatever to to prop it up. So
So
we'll see.
I have access to a ex-virologist. Now she's in charge of, she gets shipped all over the world to hunt down bio risks for the government. She has not negated a single, after going through my theory, her only question was, where do I put my money? I
Yeah.
asked her, I said, I gave her exactly what I gave you guys. I said, tell me how I'm wrong.
Well,
It was silence.
the only place,
Her only response was, where should I invest? That's the only thing she replied.
well, that's the whole point. I mean, some of the stuff I'm hearing is simply because having friends who have friends in very high places in the military with lots of stars on their shoulders, in various places in DC and other places, this is where I've been hearing this from the beginning. Now, granted, sometimes they have to be on alert and they're like way overboard to be prepared. I get it. But, I try to think it through and go, okay, is this extreme? Or is it, does it make sense? And from the beginning, it made sense. Of course, then and that's why I said what I said from the very beginning. I mean, I'm looking at this and I'm saying something, I may not know all the facts, but I get a little bit. And then and I'm going, there's something not right here. And that's why I came to the conclusion I came. And that's why I agree with you, Jason. And I'm glad you just shared with us that you've got this connection, because I think that's hugely important to know that, you've got a connection such as that, because no one person can know everything, but collectively, I think we can help, that's the whole point. Let's help each other out because this is big, and hopefully it won't be, like you said, and maybe something will happen, a catalyst, great will happen. But oh my gosh, if it doesn't, that's the whole reason why we're with you, because you can position us accordingly so that this way we're protected.
Yeah, we're set up so we can't lose at this point. So the giveaway will be if the ICUs in I'd say Miami, New York, I guess Kansas is a big hub. I wasn't aware of that. The virologist said, well, I would keep a close eye on Kansas. And then obviously California has had a lot of exposure. So if we just simply keep a close eye on the hospitals starting to have, they're going to say it's pneumonia or flu and send people home. If we continue to see, and unfortunately, as far as I know, this is all privatized data. So I think it's going to be very hard to have any sort of, okay, Jim Wills has a question. No previous positions in treasuries from your recommendations. Should I still? Yeah, so Jim, so it's 200 for our strategy is really simple. It's not something I invented, okay? This is just playbook Ray Dalio right here. Okay, if you realize money is constantly in a battle between stock market and the bond market, our whole financial system's designed for that relationship to protect one another so that investors can sit back and not have really have to worry about anything. Okay. So that's the basis of our entire strategy. So we have 100 shares of SPY, 200 shares of TLT. Okay. So our buy and hold portfolio without any options is hanging in there because of that relationship. Now it's down a little bit. Goes to show you how the pro system can outperform in crazy times like this. But let me pull it up. Let's just see how this is just mindless. This shows you how strong the strategy is. And the Chinese, an enemy of the United States, would know exactly how our financial system is engineered. Okay, so look, without touching anything, our buy and hold strategy, which is just 2-to-1 TLT SPY, is only down 1.3%. Meanwhile, stocks are down, what, 10%? So that's the big concern now. They've clearly have put a dent. Someone's put, what if you think it's an attack, the attacker is successful, stock market's crashing. he thinks that this is just a natural force, fine. Regardless, what's the next big risk for us? If the bond market were to sell off at the same time as the stock market, it would be a complete meltdown. So that's simply put why we're playing it safe. And now we have puts under both assets. So whether it's a conspiracy theory or not really doesn't matter. We got to deal with what the market's telling us. Stocks are selling off viciously. TLT's protected us to this point. If we get a rebound next week in the stock market, I would not be surprised. And we're positioned perfectly for that. We're protecting the pullback in the TLT, and we will continue to be prepared for a bounce in the SPY. So that's my intentions for how to position us on Monday. What could make that difficult come Monday? If the VIX is up above 35, around 50, trying to buy puts on the SPY will be outrageous. So we'll probably have to look at a different opportunity, which would be to sell a put and maybe buy a call. But I also don't like to buy call options when the VIX is spiked. I don't like to buy any options when the VIX is spiked. So we'll have to evaluate how expensive downside protection is on Monday. If we're lucky, on Monday, the market has a nice rebound, even if it's not above our 318 put strike. And it's going to give us an opportunity to buy another put for cheap and remain long the SPY. So I would love for Oscar to be correct that we don't have a problem in the United States. For Dean to be correct, look at SARS. SARS only put a 10% dent on the SPY, and then everything was fine. If that's true, that's great. We will make a huge return next week.
Hey, Jason, just as a side, your Kansas target city is probably your Super Bowl connection.
Oh, is that how everybody had to travel through?
Yeah, well, you got the San Francisco and
Kansas City Chiefs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
now let me go
I
ahead.
think it's an international hub as well.
Let me throw you another one on there. The week before the Super Bowl was the Pro Bowl. Guess where that was? In Orlando. It was right here. Yeah, it was 2 miles from my place. So between that and being, the happiest place on earth, Disney World.
Oh my gosh.
And we had the Daytona 500 and all that. I mean, it's just that time of the year where people are getting together, and there's a lot of conventions here. I mean, Vegas would be the same way with all this is a very, this is travel time to some of these locations.
Yeah.
Got the big March Madness tournament coming up too for college basketball.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Oscar, what's on your mind? Oscar's more connected than any of us on this. So
I find it dumbfounding somewhat that we haven't seen it. We haven't seen that.
Why do we have 445?
No. I'm not doubting your numbers. I'm not doubting your numbers at all.
Well, no, but why do you think?
But what I'm sitting there saying is my emergency rooms aren't, and we go most of Southeast Florida, basically from North Palm Beach to all the way south to Miami, and none of our ERs are reflecting a swelling of volume.
Right. See, I think Oscar's probably going to have the first, he's going to have the first heads up out of all.
Well, you know what? Hey, Oscar, I have a woman in my building who works over at the Trauma 1 unit over here in Central Florida. So, we got how many hospitals? We got Jacksonville, Orlando, Miami. And, Orlando's got a whole lot of variation. I mean, Miami's going crazy now, but it's a lot of Latins, so maybe it's not coming out of there. Well, you got a lot of Brazilians.
That may be true, but Jason brought up a good point in that we just had the Super Bowl. And
true.
You have a swelling of people in Miami. And if any of them were infected, you would see the effect kind of swell.
If you test for it.
No. But even if you have flu-like symptoms, you would show up in my ER.
Right.
And
okay, so
I don't, if I said all of a sudden I'm getting a lot of cases of flu in my emergency rooms, my antennas are going to go up.
Let me ask you this, Oscar. Would you absolutely positively know that fact in real time as it's happening?
Yeah.
Because that will be so invaluable to us. And by
Yeah,
my
I would know that.
calculation, we will know this by March.
I would know that fairly quickly, strictly because I get reports every day as to what's coming through my ER, not specifically diagnosis. But
Sure.
if I get a swelling of respiratory disease,
You
I'm
would
gonna-
know about it.
yeah,
Well, that's extremely valuable information for us in the next month. So that's very good to know.
Yeah, and that's why I said I'll double check with this woman in my building, because that's, she's works at the hospital, the trauma 1 unit over here, and that's her specialty is in the area of throat. So she would find out, breathing, etc. I'll check with her too, because she's head of her department over there. So
So let me explain why I think it could take longer to spread in the United States based on the virologist's insight. Okay, so this is from what I know, this disease is looking for opportunistic cells to jump into. So it has to be some sort of damaged, weakened cell that it thinks it can essentially hack its way into. So in China, the pollution is outrageous. They also happen to be heavy cigarette smokers. So the rate of infection and spreading in China could be not only worse, but faster. So if you take that assumption and pull it over to the United States, okay, one, maybe because we have less cigarette smokers and we have, but I don't think it's too much less. I have to pull up that heat map of cigarette smokers. We definitely have less pollution. So perhaps the virus is not as deadly in the United States because of that, maybe, or the virus is just taking longer to work its way. It's able to essentially find a cell it can live in and spread in for a much longer time period before it bursts the cell open and then begins spreading. So it could easily take longer for the spread to show up in the hospital system. So I think by March 15th, if Oscar's not seeing a substantial pickup, and certainly by March 30th, then we may be able to get to summer, and this is not nearly as bad as I think. And if so, we got our SPY ready to rock and roll, and we have a put on our TLT. But if Oscar starts telling us every week that it looks like, it's steadily increasing, that's going to be a good heads up that something is awry. So that's really nice to have Oscar as part of our team. And also, I would like to see the CDC testing people, but it doesn't seem like they're going to.
And Oscar, where are you located?
South Florida.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Had a question from Perry J.
Could not have a better person to help us with this than Oscar right now. He's not only at the top of the chain, managing a whole group of hospitals, he's in potentially one of the worst places this could start to spread. So
Let's keep that between us.
yeah. Okay, I won't say any more, Oscar, but appreciate you helping us.
I don't want some government employee coming and knocking on my door.
You're telling everybody to short the stock market, you son of a gun.
We'll call him Mr. O.
I've been called a lot worse, trust me.
Had a question from Perry J.
Yeah, okay, Perry, you're out of the SPY. Wait for the trade on Monday, Perry. You could have a hell of a buying opportunity on the SPY come Monday. Right now, the volatility. So here's the deal, guys. Part of our boot camp, and so the bottom line is, if the VIX index is really high, cost of buying options is a bad deal. It's not a good bargain. So if you were to try to buy the SPY and get the downside protection we have, you would get ripped off. So we really want to buy the SPY on a bounce up with low volatility and grab that put to protect, which we were very fortunate to do on Wednesday. That's not the case today, and I highly doubt it will be the case on Friday.
You know, the movement in the market today, while we've been talking, right before I signed it, it's just, I've had the SPX up. I mean, this is ridiculous. This thing's had like about a 100-point swing on the SPX. It's just, I just happen to have that crossing. I'm looking, I'm going, this is crazy. I feel like it's just a bunch of algos. Everyone's trying to take little pieces of profit while things are going along, or covering or doing something. It's bizarre. It's just madness. Oh well.
Hey, Jason, I want to look at NIO real quick.
Sure.
And so NIO, for those not familiar with it, it's an electric car company in China. They've been struggling quite badly. They only have about 3 months worth of cash left. And they were supposed to get a big loan and they didn't get it. And they did get a smaller loan. But if you look at them, they're up recently, and car sales in China have tanked because of everything being shut down. But one of the things, the industry that's hurt one of the worst in China is car sales. And since the virus broke out, this chart has hardly gone down at all. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I just got something. Hang on, because I used to hold Intel and I still have it on my alerts. And something came up about them and Mobileye and Neo. And I haven't had a chance to read it, but it just came out like right before we went on today.
Yeah.
So maybe there's something with that they're, I don't know, but you might want to look into that.
Yeah, it's too bad I didn't pull the trigger on that Carnival cruise. So here's why I've been hesitant to issue kind of random trades. For me to do a good job, it's a full-time job just to follow these 4 major markets. So you guys can be able to take the general macro view and do some research like Mark does. And I think you could easily make some extra profits. So I probably will be very, very skittish to trade outside of a small group of assets that I want to be an expert at. But that doesn't mean I think there aren't a lot of other opportunities out there just for me to do a good job. So yeah, it doesn't make any sense at all. I'll play the devil's advocate for that trade. Okay. So certainly it doesn't make sense. Here's a problem for China. We all know that most of their companies and citizens are running out of money. So they're going to be faced with the choice of either starving to death and going bankrupt or going back to work. So I think they're going to go back to work. I think I would rather risk getting the disease than starve to death. So that's something to be just aware of in the coming weeks and months. That could, China might be getting back up to speed here pretty soon. So, just take that with a grain of salt before you start shorting any of their assets. That's why I like the emerging market over Yang, because we're covering China, Hong Kong, South Korea, some little bit of India and Russia in there, Taiwan. So, it's so many players being hit at one time that I could see that whole sector having trouble if we're patient for it. But China is such a crazy closed economy, and they continue to shock us. So I think there are good opportunities to short China in different manners. And I'm carefully evaluating that. So yeah, I agree with you. That makes no sense at all. It may crash like a rock and might make you a lot of money, but just be aware, why isn't it happening yet? And are they about to get back to work regardless of this flu or whatever? It's not even a flu. It's a virus. So yeah, great point, Mark. Definitely doesn't make sense. Oscar, check your email. We sent you something. Okay. just as a way to say thanks. All right, guys. Well, we have our boot camp coming up in a little bit. We're going to work on spreadsheets, show you guys how to fill out the spreadsheets. Next week, I hope to continue our call option lesson. And at this point, I'd like to ask any questions. And
Yeah, Jason, I'm not a part of the boot camp, but you said that you were going to let us in for the spreadsheets or what?
I could definitely get you some content on how to fill out the spreadsheet for sure.
That's all I need. That's all I need.
Yeah, no problem. Absolutely. And I do have some good videos already up. It's really pretty easy. So I could get you that immediately. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right. Any other questions out there?
If you're stocking up on food, I'm coming to your house.
Yeah, I got the mass. I got 4 weeks of food and a whole bunch of immune system boosters. So, and some colloidal silver. Actually, I guess they're saying the nano silver is a lot better.
Yeah.
So yeah, bottom, if the worst case is here, then we just have to, try to get, it's almost like you want to get a tiny exposure to it, let your body beat it, get those antibodies built, and life goes on. So if I'm wrong, then we're just ready to rip on that SPY and make some big bucks next week.
I hope you're wrong, but your track record doesn't speak that way.
I hope I'm wrong too, Oscar.
Very nice. And sorry, guys, I had to jump out for a couple phone calls. Any last question, Jim, Wills? I know you're, kind of newer to what we're doing. Any questions for you, bud, before we hop off?
Thanks for the email, Jason and Dean. Thank you.
Yep. Hopefully we can get you on there in an hour though. Okay.
Appreciate it. Got to run, guys.
Okay. Talk to you later.
All
All
right.
right, guys. Yeah. Any last notes, Dean?
No, bud. Just jumping back in here. Sorry, I had to miss half of it, but I will definitely check out the recorded version later.
Okay, sure. Yeah, we're basically just long the SPY and the TLT now with a healthy put underneath in case shit happens. So
Yep. Saw the alert. Got that done.
can't lose, but we can win. So
Nice.
good spot to be in.
Yep. No lose scenarios are my favorite, buddy.
All right. I really appreciate everybody. I'm going to go ahead and end this one a little earlier than yesterday so I could have a little break before our boot camp. So thank you so much.